What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Binge Empire podcast. This is Brian here with my co-host, producer Dave, aka the Fallout Boys. And today we're talking season 2, episode 3 of the Amazon Prime original series, Fallout. Today's episode is entitled The Profligate. And before we get into it, a couple quick housekeeping items. This is episode 3, so I'll try not to keep it too long. We are Bingetown TV. There's actually 7 of us floating around, and we operate on 2 different podcast feeds. Like I said, this is the Binge Empire podcast feed. We also have the Core, which covers all things Apple TV Plus. And between those 2 feeds, we have a pretty extensive library of shows that we've covered, including a couple shows that are coming out right now. We just wrapped Pluribus, Hijack, Shrinking, looking ahead to the future. We're about to wrap up on Stranger Things. Big finale just went down there. Me and Dave are actually on that coverage as well. Spartacus, House of Asher, and Welcome to DERRY are some of our more recent projects. So check us out. Again, Binge Empire and The Core. But we have an episode 3 here of Fallout. Episode 3 means we need to have 3 hosts. 3 is going to be the theme of the episode, not really. But we are joined by friend of the podcast. It's ya boy Chase. Oof, owie, my podcast. Wow. But we kind of alluded to it in our last episode. Chase is our, quote, SME of Fallout and self-proclaimed played most of the games. So I am actually just going to hand it over to Chase to introduce yourself and kind of your experience in the Fallout universe.
Wow, that's quite the introduction. Thank you.
I try.
Really excited to be on the pod. I've been a big Fallout fan when it comes to video games for a very long time. Big Bethesda Game Studios fan in general. I think all of their open world games are awesome, except for maybe Starfield, but that's a different thing. Anyway, played Fallout New Vegas, played Fallout 3 growing up. Huge fan of Fallout 4. I thought it was their best. Maybe not storytelling wise, but gameplay wise. And I'm here hopefully to be able to add some context to some of the things we're seeing that are relevant to the game, and hopefully I can do my best to be the subject matter expert for the day.
For the series,
hopefully. For the series, yes. Yeah. I will be on as many episodes as you guys allow me to.
You're totally under a test right now. The comments sections, we'll see if they agree if you do a good job. So it's all a test, but we love to have you here.
So we are going to be obviously focusing on episode 3, but do you have any just overall feelings about how they've been handling the show in general? Season 1 very briefly, but even the beginning of season 2, which obviously is kind of centering around the New Vegas game content. I think it's pretty New Vegas heavy, but how do you feel about the show in general?
I mean, I think in general they've done a fantastic job. You didn't even need to have played the games to love this show, and that's what I really love about it. We have a lot of friends who have no idea about the games. They love it. Parents that love it. So I think it's really cool to see how they've done to bring people in who aren't familiar, but they're paying homage to the game as well, and tying things in that fans of the game really love and love to see. There's a lot of nods in almost every episode. There's nods to things that you kind of have to be an insider to know, but it's really cool to see those on the screen. So I think from like a lore perspective, they've done an incredible job as well to kind of add on to that, and visually it's a stunning show. So it's been great to watch, and I'm really looking forward to see where season 2 is going. I think season 1 we got a lot of like, this is the Fallout world, this is what it's like, and now we kind of get into the good stuff.
Definitely. And we've kind of been texting you through the past 2 episodes. Obviously, we've kind of met Caesar's Legion a little bit more in this episode. That was something you texted like, oh, if they're going that direction, that's going to be awesome, because they were pretty prevalent in the game. But why don't we just go ahead and get into this episode 3? We always tackle this in buckets. I think episode 3 had some pretty clean buckets here with kind of all the stuff going on with Maximus and the Brotherhood, Xander. And we actually see a familiar face in Thaddeus, who is now full-blown ghoul. We also have Lucy and the ghouls storyline, where they kind of split off, but it's all kind of related. So we're just going to lump Lucy and the ghoul still as one thing. And then we kind of still continue with these Cooper Howard flashbacks and what he was up to before the war. And those flashbacks actually have been a pretty interesting storyline and one that they've been doing since season 1. So I guess why don't we just tackle the flashbacks first? And the first time that we see Cooper Howard in the flashback, he's kind of walks in on his wife crying. I don't know how sympathetic I am with this wife, because every time she's around Cooper, like, she does have the sob story, but she's speaking very matter of factly, like, oh, I can't fit the teddy bear in our keepsake box, like, when we have to go into the vault. She's like, it's inevitable, it's happening. She doesn't know that Cooper has kind of the information of having listened into that. So how are you guys feeling about this wife, Barb?
I think we talked about in maybe the episode 1, season 2 recording of, we can't get a total gauge on her because obviously she is the one that suggested that they push the button, and they are the ones that start the nuclear war just so they can profit off of it, obviously. But then we have these moments in the household where you see these moments of weakness and you don't know how much of it is an act in front of Vault Tech. I was under the assumption that there were probably bigger heads in Vault Tech than her that, are very intimidating, like Robert House. And once you start working for Vault Tech and you get that close relationship, you're at you're at this pace of, you're just going to agree with everything Robert House says, or, maybe take things to a different, highest extreme. But still, I kind of agree with you. I don't sympathize with her fully quite yet. I really need to see a moment of maybe protection within the family. We obviously don't know what her outcome is in the backstory, whether she survives or not. But regardless, I'm with you. I don't think I really sympathize with her yet. But I think Vault-Tec still is the ones playing mind games with her, almost just intimidating her. Like, she didn't, I guess, we said it again on episode 1, like, she didn't have to be the one to suggest it, but she was. So it's hard. We're splitting hairs here, but for sure.
Yeah, I would agree with Dave on most of that. I really do think it's hard to sympathize with her, especially after what we've seen, in the dark room, speaking to all these executives, Robert House, basically guaranteeing the bombs will drop. But part of me also is like, maybe she's saying these things because she's in the room with them and that's what they want to hear. But I think she is only concerned about her family and she's doing her best, but it's not like she doesn't talk to Coop about it. She doesn't really give him anything. So it's hard to tell. And there's obviously some tension and some distrust there between the both of them. So it's interesting to see what'll happen, when we go back and see more of how they got there.
Yeah. Now, we kind of touched on this. If you're operating under the assumption that these bombs are going to drop and you just get that out of the way, then your next priority is making sure that your family is safe. So maybe Barb is just like, okay, these bombs are dropping. I got to make sure we're in a vault. But it's still sometimes in these scenes where we see her crying over the teddy bear, I'm like, do I really care? She kind of seems evil. But that was like a very small part of these flashbacks. The remainder of the flashback scenes revolve around, his friend's name is Charlie, the guy that kind of recruited him to Moldaver's. I'll call them like the communist, whatever, Pinkos, I guess they're referred to here, whatever you want to say. But he is being given this award for, service or whatever. It's a veterans award ceremony, essentially. So he's going to support Charlie. He tells him, hey, do you know what Moldaver, your boss, told me to do to this Robert House guy? And Charlie wasn't in the know. Obviously, that Moldaver wants him to go and kill Robert House. But maybe the most interesting scene of the flashbacks is when he's in the bathroom and who is there starts asking him questions other than the man himself, Robert House. And I think Cooper Howard, it seemed like he didn't know that he was talking to Robert House, which seems a little odd. The way they talk about him, it seems like Robert House is President Trump. Everybody should be able to recognize his face if you come across him in a bathroom or something. Cooper did not seem to be operating like that. I think he played it very well, was kind of keeping him at arm's length. But it also said to me that Robert House seems pretty privy to whatever Moldaver's plans are against him. to the point where he just shows up and kind of confronts Cooper. So how did this play for you guys?
I was thinking a lot of like what you're thinking is how does he not recognize Robert House? There must be, some reason. Maybe he's just not putting his face out there, publicly that often, or maybe, he looks like any other guy with a mustache. I don't know. It's interesting how he met him in the bathroom, approached him right after he talked about Robert House to his friend Charlie, and he doesn't seem to get it. It's kind of scary, honestly, that he's there. And we saw in like the first episode, Robert House is a very sadistic guy. He's very maniacal. He will do anything he wants at any time. When he approaches Coop from the back, I'm like kind of worried he's going to slap one of those devices on him, but I already know, that doesn't happen because we've seen the future. But it is very nefarious, and there's clearly a lot of history between him and Coop.
So I did take it at first that he did not recognize Robert House, but what if, he did recognize him and he just kind of played it off so he wouldn't feel like he was intimidated? Robert House is clearly trying to intimidate him. Cooper is a war vet at the end of the day. Like, he knows those games. So, and Robert House has all this power. I personally actually kind of walked away thinking that there was a chance he knew what it was, and this is only going to motivate him further to want to work with Moldaver to kill him. But overall, this I thought this was a beautiful backstory in terms of just the parallels of the morality of the ghoul in present day and how we're seeing him kind of, loosen up on his ideals that have hardened him over the couple hundred years that he's been alive. And I love seeing that for him, especially if that means he's going to be more cooperative with Lucy. I'm all for that. So I really enjoyed the parallels here of this backstory and how it impacted the ghoul. The scenes did a very good job of making it feel like it impacted the ghoul present day in the decision that he ends up doing to help them all escape. So love the flashback. And yeah, I think there was a chance that he probably did know that it was Robert House, but I'm not 100% sure. Again, it could just be pure coincidence,
If I'm Cooper and I clock that was Robert House, right when I leave that bathroom, I'm like, there is no way that I'm going through with Moldaver's plan because this guy is clearly really? Like 10 steps ahead of her. He knew that she asked me to like kill him. He confronted me in this bathroom. I would be like, hell no. It is funny, Dave, you were saying just kind of the morality of it all. We're seeing this old Cooper Howard, the type of guy who's going to Charlie like, hey, I don't know, like Moldaver's telling me to take this guy out. There's got to be another way. And the whole flashback plays out with the guy Charlie essentially telling him, listen, Robert House is one guy. You look around, all these veterans, probably more than half of them have killed multiple people, and maybe the people that they killed weren't necessarily the right people that deserve to die. You know what I mean? This Robert House guy is clearly shady. He's just one guy. It's essentially that old trope. Like, is killing one person worth the greater good and stuff like that? So that's kind of what Charlie is trying to instill in him. He references the flashback, I'm in the heat of battle, I lift up my visor, who's looking back at me other than Cooper Howard? So I do like, Dave, that you kind of brought up that Coop is a war veteran like that. And then Charlie gives him this dinky little lighter, which is his award for all his service. Here you go, have the lighter. And he gives it to Cooper, which we find out even as the ghoul, he still carries with him to this day. And he leaves him with a good quote, which is, they gave that to me for saving a man, not for the 3 I had to kill in order to save that guy. And that kind of brought it all the way around to him exploding the Caesar's Legion camp. So I've always loved these flashbacks because they're very good at weaving them into the relevant storylines in kind of the present day.
What was Diane's deal, man? She was fumbling that introduction so hard. I almost thought when she dropped the papers, I genuinely thought there was going to be a device on her neck because she was fumbling it so hard. I thought she was just under mind control. And then it was just a recurring gag of her being super awkward. It made me so uncomfortable. Like when she hands the lighter, I'm like, oh my God, this is such a terrible award ceremony.
I had no idea what was up with her, but yeah, she was not killing it. I mean, the only person not to accept funding, maybe that wasn't by choice. Maybe they're just like, nah, we don't want to give you money. You're incompetent.
Yeah.
But that's really it for the flashback stuff. I guess if we're talking Cooper and, the ghoul, why don't we just tackle this Lucy and the ghoul stuff, and we'll save the Brotherhood for our final bucket. So we get right into it, though. Lucy is being delivered to Caesar, aka the Kaiser, which she immediately is like, no, Kaiser is German. Like, you guys have more of a, it was funny, the Roman thing going on. And I mean, we start to see what this Caesar's Legion is all about, because this woman with the tunic who brought Lucy back to the camp immediately gets beheaded for having lost her legion, I think they call it. So they don't play around. There's people being hung on crosses and stuff. And oh, by the way, Macaulay Culkin is here too. So there's a lot going on in this Caesar's Legion camp. But maybe I'll hand it over to Chase here. What do you think of seeing this Caesar's Legion on the silver screen, as it were? Is TV the silver screen? It's the small screen, whatever that one is.
I thought it was awesome. I had texted you guys about that. Like, I'm pretty confident that's Caesar's Legion, and I'm so excited about the next episode because I thought it was awesome. They have some of the coolest like armor. Even like Macaulay Culkin's character, he's wearing like this sick mask.
Mm-hmm.
And they're just ruthless, right? These are like, they believe in the old times, like Roman times, and that they should rule based on power, nothing else. And so it's just a really cool faction. But I will say, where things are left off in the games, especially New Vegas, Caesar's Legion are kind of having this infighting thing where they have two sides. And it's really interesting to see how like they're kind of a shell of themselves of what they used to be. They used to be like one of the core powers in the Wasteland, and same thing with like the NCR, and we'll get to that later. But we're starting to kind of see how things have played out. If you played the games, there's tons of different endings you can get depending on which faction you team up with. There's no canon ending, but we might get maybe something more similar to what could be a canon ending to what happened in the past. And I think that's really interesting. But it's really cool to kind of see like, where's the Caesar's Legion? What's going on with them? And what's their place now in the Mojave Desert, in the Mojave Wasteland?
Mm. So you were saying in the games, Caesar's Legion was also fighting amongst themselves, kind of like is depicted in the show?
So I would say in most of the factions, there's probably like, storylines that diverge where there's people who want to do different things, and you might take up different sides when you're doing quests. But in the game, I'd say the three major factions, if you will, for this, Mojave Wasteland are the NCR, as I mentioned. They were a huge faction. They had Shady Sands, which we learned in the show, and that's no more. You had the Legion, Caesar's Legion, who were also fighting for power. And then you had basically House, who was the other big player in this, because he's located in Las Vegas, and we haven't got there yet. New Vegas, we haven't got there yet. But those three are basically fighting for control, and you get to decide which team you want to help out. Who do you think has the better outcome for the Wasteland, or who do you think has the worst? And you maybe just want to be chaotic. But that's what makes the games really fun. And I think what's really cool about the show is that we're starting to get to see where everybody is at now, and it's there's still a lot on the line, I think.
For sure.
I like the introduction to the Legion. Absolutely. I thought it was a good reminder to Lucy's character of her correcting them on Caesar over Kaiser, because it just reminds the viewer, hey, Lucy is a very knowledgeable character. She has spent a lot of time reading books. That's something that honestly I escaped when they said Kaiser and she replied Caesar. I didn't quite register the joke or the terminology right away.
Right.
And when she even went as far to like shout out the clothing and say you're Roman, not German, just a cool shout out for Lucy's character. I just love her so much. And yeah, Macaulay Culkin playing an evil villain here was interesting to see for sure.
I don't even know how evil he was. He was just part of like an evil group. He was pretty like even keeled. I don't know. And our other friend who watches, actually another Dave, texted us and was like, "How do you feel about all these celebrity cameos? Like Macaulay Culkin was in it." For me personally, I couldn't care less. I was like, "Oh, Macaulay Culkin," and that's fine. I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see that character again, because it seems like I actually don't know how much this Legion is going to play a part going forward because of kind of the bomb that the Ghoul dropped at the end of this episode and just kind of left them in chaos.
So if we're already getting to that point,
Sure.
I'm with you. So when we finish up this storyline and it ends with the Legion's infighting just erupting into total chaos, I also was like, I can't believe that'll be the end of them. But at the same time, it's Macaulay Culkin. Like, it's a big actor that
Mhm.
I don't think they would just want to sign him on just to have him quote unquote killed even off screen like this. And they could easily just pin the explosion on the NCR. Like, at some point while they're fighting, someone could just be like, "Hey, why are we fighting each other? This could have easily been the NCR that the Ghoul was referring to.
You know,
Why not just proceed?"
I'm laughing because you're saying, "Oh, they wouldn't bring this celebrity on just for a one episode cameo," and they totally did that and killed off the other celebrity that they had on clearly for a one episode cameo.
You're
I'm talking
absolutely
about
right. You're
Xander
absolutely
with
right. You are 1000% right there. So maybe they did, but there's something that didn't sit right with how that fat arc ended that makes me think that they still will come back. But you're absolutely right. They did 100% kill a big time actor in one episode, basically.
it strikes me, and we see the Ghoul goes out to kind of seek out help from the NCR, and what he finds out, "Oh, I thought the good guys were going to take control of this area, but it seems like you guys don't have your crap together either. There's just a ramshackle 3 people at this outpost, and that is the only NCR presence." What I'm getting to is it seems like Caesar's Legion may have kind of taken quote control of the area and probably has a bigger presence there. So I'm kind of crossing my fingers and hoping that this isn't the last we've seen of Caesar's Legion, and kind of that they are a presence and play more of a part throughout this season. Maybe they seek, or maybe they make a truce between their two camps, and then maybe they turn their sights towards getting revenge on the Ghoul and Lucy, something like that, knowing that they got betrayed. I don't know. I'm hoping this isn't the last we saw of Caesar's Legion. But as we move forward, I kind of alluded to the Ghoul goes to seek out help from the NCR. There's not too much else to touch on there other than I believe we see a familiar face from the video games, which would have been this robot Victor. And I guess I'll hand it off to you, Chase. This was something from New Vegas, yes?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Victor is a Securitron robot, which in the games, there's a ton of them. We've seen a couple more in the episode as well. But he is a robot specifically designed to be a cowboy, which is pretty cool. And so he's probably, somewhat of a fan favorite. He's got some funny lines. He's a little banged up, but he's a really cool character in the game that is a little bit important for some quests later on. But you see him pretty early in the game, and I think he is initially like in cahoots with Mr. House as some sort of surveyor of what's going on in the wasteland to kind of report back to him.
Right.
So that's another big thing which I think will be important too, is like these Securitron robots are the security that Mr. House employs, or uses in New Vegas. And we're starting to see more of them, and I think, hopefully, I think we're going to get some really big episodes where we go to New Vegas soon, and we're going to see a lot more and see what it looks like. And so I think that's really exciting. But Victor is just a taste of some of the characters that you get in the game, and it's cool to see a familiar face, if you will.
He was awesome. I liked Victor's introduction, and he dropped a good amount of knowledge, I think, for us as the viewer in terms of what Robert House's ultimate goal is, which I'm surprised we hadn't vocally said this on the podcast. It feels so obvious, but at the time back in the day when before the bombs went off, Robert House was trying to live forever, essentially become immortal.
Mhm.
And the cold fusion reactor was the cold fusion relic or whatever they call it is a big part of that. So I really like that knowledge. again, I'm surprised we couldn't just guess that already. But having that vocalization of getting Robert House's plan is great because now we can slowly understand him more as a villain. And if Robert House is trying to live forever, we know that's just not a good thing. So I think Victor's introduction was really good. Definitely had some funny one-liners, like you said. So it seems like he matched his video game personality very well. And yeah, it was a good, and I agree with you. I like that you mentioned that he is important to Robert House as well in the video games, because it definitely seemed that way. It felt like he was hiding a lot, but that's also because the Ghoul mentions that he might be missing some parts right now, or some circuitry, some memories that we will get later on, hopefully. But his close relations to Robert House, I'm so looking forward to getting more of, because I've said it every podcast, I love Robert House as a villain. I want more.
Another fun fact, actually, the golf resort that they're at is called the House Resort and Country Club, but the house part is taken off the sign, so we don't know that. But in the games, that's where the NCR has one of their bases. They call it Camp Golf, so that's pretty cool. It's another like direct location, and it's, I think we could probably get into more context on the map of where things are, but I would say it's just like slightly south of New Vegas.
Okay, gotcha.
So it's a little bit closer to where House is probably located. But that's just a cool fun fact that if you haven't played the game, you might not have recognized the area.
That's awesome.
And that tracks, because the Ghoul is going in there looking for help from the NCR, and he is met with just this old version of Victor, whatever, who points him and in the direction of the hills and says, yeah, it's the Legion and a couple Rangers over in the hills, which he then goes to the hills and comes across this, I don't know, maybe 3 NCR Rangers. And again, I'll come over to you, because you texted us and said this NCR armor, it's like iconic. It dons the cover of the Fallout New Vegas game. So I guess, how was it just seeing the NCR in live action? Did they make it look good?
Yeah, it looks awesome. I mean, it's like armor that you're like, if I was gonna buy an armor suit for myself to wear in the desert, this would be it. Yeah. Like if I was in the post-apocalyptic world, I would wear this because it's sick. The helmet is awesome. It's got like the red visor, like glass. It's the Duster coat is cool, and one of the guys at the NCR is wearing that. Like he's pretty cool looking, right? So you're like, this is an awesome outfit. It's on the cover of the game, which is sweet, and it's just cool to see all of it. I wish the NCR was still as strong as they used to be, but we're starting to see like they are just absolutely destroyed, and it'll be interesting to see what happens, because they do mention that they have troops out east. So it's unclear like what happened after Shady Sands.
Right. And I think that's something I'm interested in too, because the Ghoul seems to have a very pessimistic outlook on the fate of the NCR after Shady Sands, but I don't think he has the proof of concept and knows that there's nothing out east. These NCR Rangers are being optimistic, help us link up. I also thought it was crazy. They thought that they were kind of out there on their own for a decade, and then the Ghoul's like, no, it's actually been 20 years since Shady Sand, and both of them, who were already going a little crazy, kind of look at each other like, holy crap, that's really crazy. But as this kind of carries out, I guess, I've only played Fallout 4. You've played more of the games than I, but this seems to be one of those classic Fallout, which faction are you going to side with choices, where it's we'll call them, quote, the good guys, the NCR, because I think they are being painted as the good guys here. Gives him a little box of the rat away when he starts coughing and is like, please help us make contact with our battalion out east and tell them we're still here fighting the good fight. He goes right into the Legion camp and essentially says, hey, I know where the last of the NCR is. Give me Lucy and you can exterminate the NCR, whatever. And we think that he's just playing the bad guy and is going to sell out the NCR. But then as they're walking away, boom, the explosions go off and the 2 Legion camps start firing at each other. So, I mean, this seems pretty surface level, but we are to believe that that was all the Ghoul's design, and that he is maybe favoring the NCR and giving them a little helping hand.
It was disappointment after disappointment for the Ghoul for me when he takes the vials and then he doesn't offer help to the NCR, and then he goes to the Legion and then reveals the NCR location. I was so disappointed. I thought we were really making progress. But then again, we get the beauty of the flashbacks getting mixed in here as well, kind of a little bit of a voiceover too from Charlie at some moments. And he makes the right decision in the very end. So I was happy that he ended up making the right decision. Again, I still think the Legion will come back. I don't think this will be the end of them either, but really big moment for the Ghoul in terms of character development and choosing a side, like you said, B Toms. Hopefully we can keep that beat going as long as he's hanging around Lucy. I'm sure that good nature vibes will just keep rubbing off on him. But we are seeing him come back a little bit to Cooper Howard. So I would love to see that.
Yeah, I think it's a really big turning point for Coop, as I like to call him.
There you go.
But I mean, he's the Ghoul now, right? He's this badass who doesn't care, but now he's starting to care a little bit more as he's being reminded of the past. And I think that parallel with the past of, him kind of changing his mind to lean more towards helping Charlie is he's getting that same feeling right now. Like, I'm doing the wrong thing. I can be really helpful. And I think it was a huge episode for him. And I also think it's a huge episode for Lucy. She also, I would say Coop and Lucy are on very opposite sides of good karma and bad karma, right? Coop, he's on the bad side. Lucy is very far on the good karma. I only want to bring positive vibes into the world. And we see they're both kind of getting closer to the middle, I think.
Yeah.
I think Lucy's having this realization that I can't be happy-go-lucky with everybody and just be super helpful, because there's always someone out there who's going to want to try and screw me over. And it's going to happen regardless of how nice I am. And even though much didn't happen for her, except for basically being like almost crucified, she really, I think, after this episode will maybe become more like Coop, and Coop will become more like her. And I think that's a good thing. It's like a great kind of change for both of them and their journey.
I've definitely said that on the pod before, and I completely agree. This might be one of those harder, harsher moments for Lucy because she physically went through it. I don't know how exactly long she was up there, but that is something that directly impacted her kindness directly impacting her in a way that got her in trouble. So this could definitely be one of those hard hit moments. And the last thing I have about this whole arc is I loved when the Ghoul shows up to the Legion and he's like, Awe, or whatever the fuck y'all say.
Yeah.
that was a great line. That was great.
He has the best one-liners.
Yeah, definitely.
Undefeated.
Yeah, I think Ghoul's got to be. He's my favorite character in the show. Would you guys agree with that? I think he's just so
Absolutely.
badass. But you guys touched on it. If you didn't, I was going to bring that up as well. Lucy pretty much just played the prisoner this episode, but that was because of her golden rule from the last episode where, Sophie's choice, whatever, she chose to save the woman in the tunic and then dealt with the consequences of it. Had the Ghoul not... we didn't even talk about that scene. Did he just cut out the rad scorpion poison and that made him better and able to walk?
That's what I took it as. I took it as he cut out the poison. Ghouls heal quickly. He was able to heal from there. But the process of actually cutting into the flesh is obviously painful. Like, he still feels everything. So.
Okay, pretty convenient fix, but I'll buy it. So yeah, I mean, had the Ghoul not marched into camp, she, like Chase said, crucified curtains for Lucy.
If we are going to talk about that scene, the one thing I'll ask is, what did you guys make of that whole boat analogy? Like, if you have like one plank replaced, it's just a hole in the boat. But if you replace the whole thing, it's just, a pile of wood. Is that kind of talking about himself as he's going these changes is what I kind of took it as?
Chase, if you have something, if not, I can take it.
I mean, yeah, I absolutely, when he says that in that moment, I'm thinking like, this is him speaking about his experience.
Yeah.
And, he's been alive for what, 200 years as a Ghoul, maybe more. I'm not really sure, but he clearly has seen a lot. He's been through a lot. And I think this is just like another piece of him, like literally coming off. And I think he's speaking to his experience and like maybe not recognizing himself. And maybe that's kind of what, that was Lucy's goal, was like, maybe you'll learn about the golden rule and why it's great. if I leave you here? And
Yeah.
he does. He starts to realize, like, maybe I've been doing it wrong the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, I'm right there with Chase. He already lost his nose too. I think Lucy chopped off one of his fingers. Like at a certain point, even if you are an indestructible ghoul, you take off enough of your body and strip it away. At a certain point, you're just going to be unrecognizable. So I actually thought that was a pretty good, like 2-minute scene there with him and Dogmeat. And also, what a redeemable quality that he is a dog lover, even from his past to nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, what I
For
love
sure.
about dog meat is like a staple in the Fallout games, and
Yeah.
in every game, there's a dog meat. It's not like the same dog every time, but
Right.
there's always a dog meat as a companion, and that's what's cool about that is it's actually a nod to Mad Max
Oh,
because in the
really?
original Mad Max movie, his companion is a dog that looks exactly like dog meat, and so it's really cool. Like in this
Hmm.
post-apocalyptic world, they're drawing parallels and throwing nods to these other like really famous movies about that similar situation.
That's cool. I didn't know that.
And
Yeah,
all the dog meats are always like that German Shepherd looking, like the
yeah.
same
Like
breed,
I'm
not
pretty
the same.
sure.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure The
Yeah,
Witcher does something similar. Like The Witcher's horse is always, I forget the name off the top of my head, but like he'll have different horses, but it's always going to be the same name horse basically and the same kind of look as well. That's funny.
Paul would have our heads. Is
I
his
know.
horse's name Roach?
Yes, you are.
I
Thank
Yeah,
think
you.
it's
so.
It
something. Yeah.
absolutely is Roach. It is
Okay.
1000% Roach. Good call, B Toms.
Cool. Last thing I want to bring up is when he first interacts with the NCR, the one ranger is kind of saying, hey, the things that we fight for, schools, clean water, and rights for people like you, i.e., ghouls, like those are morally just things to stand on. Like we are not like the
Yeah.
Legion. We are fighting for the betterment of humanity, if you will. But then she also says, word on the street is you used to care about those things too. And then right when they first interact, she says something to the effect of the NCR and this ghoul go way back. So it seems like he has a long-standing dialogue or relationship with the NCR, and maybe he was even helping them earlier along before the events of the series that we have seen. So I think that is just some good lore building, and hopefully that comes back into play.
Mhm.
Moving away from that storyline, though, we have a pretty good Maximus and the Brotherhood plot
Mhm.
progression here. The first scene of the episode is actually the familiar face of Thaddeus, who is running, I don't want to call it a sweatshop, but it's kind of like a child's sweatshop. And I
Yeah.
couldn't tell, Chase, maybe you would know if they were bottling up the sodas and they were purveyors of the Nuka-Cola, or if they were like recycling, trying to get the caps, which are the currency in the wasteland right now. So were they kind of scrapping for caps? Is that how you took it?
Yeah, it seems like they're just farming caps
Okay.
in what probably was like an old Nuka-Cola factory, which is like typically the Nuka-Cola caps are just the currency throughout the wasteland in this, Fallout universe.
Right. Well, in any rate, I loved Thaddeus from season 1. We had to assume that he was going to come back into play because he obviously lived through season 1. I'm glad we got him because he's just funny on screen. I think he's really good.
Yeah, he was great. He had some witty one-liners too. I do agree. It was great seeing Thaddeus. In the episode preview too, like when the episode starts, you see it recaps him getting shot in the neck, so you knew he was going to
Mhm.
appear on screen. And it was something that I wasn't ready for. I knew we were eventually going to get him, but it was good to see him this early on. And the way he like optimistically talks to the children in this sweatshop is just like so funny. I forget what was I had the line
The
written
quote is
down, but I
like,
forgot it.
most kids our age are dead.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yes, that's the
yeah.
one. Yeah, that was the one. So he
He's
was
like, what do
good
we
for
always
sure.
say?
Mhm.
So Thaddeus is doing his thing. He's got a nice gig lined up as line manager of these kids. And then we kind of move over to the actual events of the Brotherhood. And they have a nice little plot line stirring with Quintus, the elder, wanting to kind of brew up this revolution against the Brotherhood's home base back in the Commonwealth. Xander, who is the liaison to the Commonwealth, is obviously sniffing around. And since the Commonwealth is obviously privy to this bubbling rebellion, whatever, all of the other factions of the Brotherhood in the Mojave are starting to get cold feet. So they're starting to back out. Quintus understands, hey, if we don't at least have the factions together in this region, we don't stand a chance against the Commonwealth no matter what. And I guess this might be a good time to question you. The boxes of I thought they were the mini nukes from last episode. Is that what they were, Chase?
No. So those were actually fusion cores,
Okay.
which you see, like those are what go into the power armor.
Yep.
They power up, like, some elements of the vaults use those for power.
Okay.
And I think what they're hinting at is with this cold fusion at Area 51, they have the ability to make as many fusion cores as possible. Because fusion cores, if you think about it, like in this world, they're very rare. Whatever was made pre-war is all that exists. And now they have the power to make these infinitely, it seems. And so what he's alluding to is we can power up as many power armors as possible. Maybe there's more weapons they can power with these. So I think, it's a really valuable resource that they've come across. And I thought it was going to really work out. But Xander had some different plans, obviously.
Well, so the way this all kind of proceeds is the other factions start to get the cold feet. They back out, and Maximus is left there with Quintus the Elder and essentially says, hey, I could just kill this guy Xander. I mean, that's what we're all about anyway. Like, we're not getting all goody two shoes for this. Like, we've killed people for our own means before. Why don't I do it? And Quintus doesn't just say no. He says, behold the dimness of the sword. Like, I don't need to hear the thought of sword, you idiot. Get out of here and go be my lapdog. And this is kind of, I mean, all 3 episodes, there's been a tension between Maximus and Quintus. Chase, did you read the last episode, that bare knuckle fight between him and the Jack dude? I mean, Quintus sent that guy to murder him, right?
It was hard to tell. I think there's definitely like the struggle for power within the Brotherhood. Like everyone wants to be more strong, like stronger than the next person.
Right.
And like, the Knights are like, oh, like they think they're better than everyone else. We saw that with like Knight Titus in season 1. And so, I think it was more, I didn't read it as Quintus sending him to kill him. I think he looked to Quintus to kind of get approval to fight this guy. And I think like that's kind of one of the recurring things is he's always looking to Quintus for approval and to just kind of follow what he's doing. And Quintus, probably knowing that he's at a disadvantage based on size alone, is like, let's see if he can do it. And I think the reality is, he's using him as a tool. He doesn't really care that much about him, even though he calls him son and is kind of trying to like almost make it seem like there's a relationship there that's endearing. I think Quintus is very much like, he's there to rule and he will use whatever tools he can. And I think this is one of those moments where he tries to also, like Dave mentioned this in the last pod, he's trying to break Maximus, right? To be the sword.
Right. Okay. No, I like it. Yeah. And I mean, coming out of that scene where Quintus is kind of, making fun of him, calling him dim, whatever, he storms out, and then he runs into Xander, who is kind of sweet talking to him. And you kind of reference Titus from season 1. Some of the knights in the Brotherhood do have this cocky demeanor to them and kind of, I don't know the word I'm looking for, but maybe it's just cocky. Maybe that's all that needs to be said. But Xander seems to be kind of in line with that perception, but he's sweet talking to him. He's saying, oh, that guy Quintus, I'm sure he doesn't practice what he preaches. Like, he's not out here like you and me, like giving his blood for the Brotherhood. He's probably a rah-rah guy, like just give speeches. He kind of says something to the effect of back east in the Commonwealth, like people like you and me are the ones that run the show. It's a pretty sweet deal. He essentially says, let's talk about it because Quintus is about to make a mistake. And if the Commonwealth comes here and brings down the hammer on you guys, you're going to lose. It's going to be a bloodbath. Let's try and let cooler heads prevail. And then they go on the vertibird, and he kind of continues with that rhetoric like, hey, you and me, if you just get me the relic and I can bring that back to the Commonwealth, we can avoid this civil war, yada, yada, yada. So what were you guys taking away from everything that Xander was kind of spitting? Because before they get on the ground and encounter Victor, et cetera, I was like, okay, the Xander is kind of, I'm picking up what he's putting down. This all seems good. I hope Maximus is kind of buying what he's selling.
I'm with you. I think I think he did a great job of selling the East Coast side of things for sure to Maximus. I did feel a little like we had to keep our eyes out. You know, is he a little bit more nefarious than we realized? But I feel like that's just the nature and the theme of this show. I feel like they do a good job of making you question those characters right away. Like, you're not supposed to be Lucy and just agree to everything you hear. You know, you are kind of supposed to have that wit about you. And we do see that eviler side of him towards the end here. But everything he did say was, at least to me appeared to be very accurate and made sense of where he was coming from, and how it definitely made it seem like the Brotherhood of Steel were just holding the reactors for no real reason when, you know, they themselves, the Commonwealth, need it. It made a lot of sense to me. I thought Xander did a great job of selling him and reaching Maximus on a level that he can, you know, understand and feel like he can connect with. So great introduction to Xander. I thought genuinely felt like a good guy, but I was a little nervous of him still. You know, you can't just blindly trust everyone that you meet.
Yeah, I think from a perspective of what he's saying, like you said, I think he is telling the truth about the situation. It does seem like, you know, they are going to end up in a civil war if he doesn't go home with this cold fusion. And as we mentioned before, like, the Commonwealth Brotherhood is known to be very strong and one of the strongest, and they all know it too.
Right.
And you know, so I think he's pretty forward. I think he does sweet talk him, but he's a pretty likable guy at face value.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
he also is kind of showing Maximus, like, it doesn't need to end poorly for everybody. There's a better way out of this. Cooler heads can prevail, I think, you know, he mentioned. And I think Maximus genuinely thinks that it's the best option as well. And so, you know, he goes out with him, and there's more to it, but
right. Is the Commonwealth that he's referring to, just help align myself and our audience, perhaps, is the Commonwealth the area around Boston that is depicted in Fallout 4? Like, that's what they mean by the Commonwealth, just that geographic area?
yeah, I'm pretty sure it's just like, you know, Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and just, I guess, like the New England region of America.
They all fall under the Brotherhood of Steel, rather, or like they assist each other. They're not necessarily the same umbrella, maybe.
It seems to me like they're all different factions, and they kind of keep to themselves, except because the Commonwealth is the largest and probably the strongest. The rest of them are a little bit scattered, and they kind of like, they don't want to mess with them. But Commonwealth is kind of just ruling everything on the East Coast, from my understanding.
Gotcha.
Up in that region, at least.
But I guess everything is loosely unified under the one umbrella of the Brotherhood of Steel. But as we're seeing, you know, there are varying degrees of respect for that one higher authority. Okay.
Yeah,
cool.
they have the codex, like Xander mentions.
Right. Okay, that's what. Yeah.
But it's, you know, they all interpret it their own way.
Gotcha.
Well, yeah, so Xander gives Maximus a lot to think about, and then he gets a ping in the vertibird, and essentially Maximus is like, what do you care? You're 2,000 miles away from home. He's like, dude, this is what we get to do. This is the Brotherhood of Steel. Let's go check it out. And they run into Victor, and I guess this isn't the Victor that the ghoul encountered. This is a different Victor. But Cowboy Victor turns to Soldier Face Victor. Is that a thing in the game? Like, can the Securitrons... Did I say that right? Securitrons turn from cowboy to like the soldier?
Yeah, so in the game, there's different versions of the Securitron robot, and it all depends on like what their purpose is. So I think in the beginning of that scene, it's like talking about giving a massage, and then it switches over to like the soldier's face, which is more like, you know, the military Securitron. There's also Victor, as we met before, who is like one of one, I'm pretty sure, like a cowboy archetype. Okay. And then you have more like, you know, police versions of Securitrons that are kind of like policing certain areas, especially around New Vegas. We might see some of those, which would be really cool. But you can basically, like, I guess, program them to do whatever you want.
Now that I
And
think about
so
it too, it's interesting that the Victor cowboy persona is the one that the ghoul is like very closely related to, because obviously Coop himself was a cowboy, or is viewed as a cowboy. So it's kind of funny that the one that is closest to working with Robert House, or we're assuming at least was at some point, was a like almost based on Coop. Almost, it feels like maybe a replacement to him.
I really appreciated how cordial Coop and Victor's interaction were. It almost
Yeah.
came across as like old friends shooting
Yeah.
the shit, and kind of, yeah, they were friendly with each other, which was good, which was not the reception that this Securitron had when he was met with Xander and Maximus. But Xander is just like, nah, this is fun. He gets out the, I don't know what you want to call it, the souped up hammer, and then he beats the crap
the
out of
super
Victor.
sledge.
There you go. Okay. I knew that was something from the game.
One of the coolest weapons in the game for sure.
Of course. Can you only use it if you have the body armor?
No.
Oh,
I don't know.
damn.
It's feasible in reality to use that if you're not
Yeah.
in the body armor, because it probably weighs a ton. But no, you can use it as just like a regular person in the game.
Very cool. Gotcha. But yeah, this was a fun scene. I don't know. Xander just goes all out. The Star Spangled Banner's playing in the background. So nice American pride, whatever. Maximus joins in. Boom. Fist to the face. But it can't just end like that. Of course, they got to keep sweeping through the building, and we come across the same child ghoul from the opening scene. Xander's like, okay, where there's one, oh, it's just a baby abomination. Where there's one, there's many. So all the kids come out, and we kind of see maybe this is, I don't know, ghoul racism, if you want to call it that. But we also get some insight to the Brotherhood's policy on ghouls, which is, the codex is clear on this. We want to eradicate them. We treat them like a scourge, an abomination, whatever. And Xander tries to separate the smooth-skinned kids and the wrinkly kids, tells them to close their eyes. And right before he can essentially take out all of the child ghouls, Thaddeus intervenes. We can see Maximus doesn't want this to go down, and as this all comes to a head, Maximus makes the executive decision to use the super sledge on Xander, and he says, well, shit, I think I just started a war here. And Thaddeus is like, well, if you haven't noticed, I'm line manager, so we both got our own thing going on. But yeah, go ahead.
This was a phenomenal jaw-dropping moment for me, at the end. I think a lot of people could argue like, oh, why didn't Maximus just tackle him? But I think one of the big things we've seen with Maximus over these past 2 episodes is this pent-up aggression and this pent-up anger that is very quick to turn into aggression. And even in the fight, like, I think the fight was a perfect segue into this moment of he had to make it. He could have made a decision, to possibly maybe let this person live, but just in that quick moment with all of what he is experiencing in the world, he just makes the quick decision to kill him. And I think honestly, it was very poetic almost in that sense of how they've built up that climax for him to kill Xander here. And it also segues obviously into more plot of there's a war about to happen. But my jaw dropped because, obviously he suggests earlier on if he should just straight up kill Xander, and the developing relationship they have there of, is he still keeping that plan in the back of his mind, and it all just culminating to this. It was just so really well done. I did not see it coming. Again, going into Xander's character of him wanting to kill the ghouls, that was the negative of him. Everyone has their views, everyone's not perfect except for maybe Lucy and their views. So that was the kind of twist we needed in his character to kind of show that even the Commonwealth is flawed in their views as well. So the last comment I have is just the smooth skin kids, I guess, were they just not as fully affected? And if so, is there a cure for it? Like, why would he have not just lit them all up, I guess, is my question there. If they were infected, the fact that their skin is smooth shouldn't divulge from the fact that they are going to end up ghouls, I guess.
Chase might be able to speak to that, but I
think
don't think that's necessarily true. I think you're either a ghoul or you're not a ghoul. And I think the kids that didn't seem to be affected weren't
Okay.
yet turned.
Okay, so
Yeah, I
there
think
was a
that's
mix of kids in there that were ghoul, and okay, so he was just kind of like just culminating kids. For some reason, I guess I saw the first ghoul kid and just assumed that they were all going to be ghouls, and that the fact that he referred to him as smooth and not was just kind of a testament to how affected or how deep into the illness it is. But okay, that makes way more sense if it was just actually just kids in general.
so in the Fallout universe, smooth skin is actually a slur that ghouls use to refer to people that aren't ghouls.
Okay.
And basically, he's separating them based on whether they're ghouls or not. And I think like they kind of cover that in the start of the episode where Thaddeus is having a talk with one of the girls and says like, "Oh, well, you're not a ghoul. You know, look at him. He is."
Right.
And so because of the codex says you have to kill all ghouls, basically they're what is it called, abominations, right? He's just ready to line them up and just gun them down. And so that kind of explains why, you know, he split them up. But I don't think there's any, I'd have to check, but I don't think there's any like reason they would become ghouls unless they were exposed to like high amounts of radiation, you know, at a certain point in their life. Yeah.
That's how I took it as well. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, where does Maximus go from here? Because like he can't even cover it up. No matter what, it's going to be a civil war. Like Xander is dead. That's an unavoidable fact. And he can't, I don't know what yarn he's going to spin because he can't even say he was trying to kill these kids that were ghouls and I couldn't let him because they'd be like, well, they were ghouls. He was just doing what he was supposed to do. But I mean, Maximus is good at surviving. So I think he's going to lie to some extent. I'm just wondering, is he even going to go back to the Brotherhood at all, or is this his ticket to be like, okay, that relationship has been fully severed, I'm taking these 2 suits of armor and I'm getting out of here?
Chase, you want to go first and make your guess?
I would say your guess is as good as mine. I think he's in a lot of trouble. I think if he's smart, he doesn't go back because I think
agreed.
Civil war is going to happen, right? And Quintus clearly, you know, he just wants to use him whichever way he can. And if he makes a big mistake like this, like he's as good as dead. So I think his only choice is to run.
I totally agree. If he was smart, he would run. I actually think he's going to go back because I don't know. I think he's just going to go back for some reason. I think he's going to spin this in a way like obviously Quintus will be very upset because he already told him no to enacting the plan. But at the end of the day, Maximus suggested that plan for a reason, you know, to further betterment the Brotherhood. So I think him doing this will allow the Brotherhood to have the one up over the Commonwealth at the end of the day. So quick response would be Quintus is pissed, but eventually we'll see that it was probably good for them in the long term, at least their mission and that benefit. So that's kind of where my head is at and why I think Quintus will go back. But I think the smart thing to do would be to run away for sure.
Yeah, I agree with all you guys said. I think he should run away. I don't know where he goes from there. Maybe he seeks out Lucy. Maybe he runs in with the Legion. I just think, especially with what like we saw last episode and the tensions building between him and Quintus, like what is the best case scenario of him returning to the Brotherhood with a dead Xander, especially after Quintus just completely rejected his idea of, oh, I could just kill that Xander guy. And Quintus already has like, you know what I'm saying? I don't know how returning to the Brotherhood could possibly end up well for him.
And then the other thing I'm thinking of is that he just heads east and just goes to the Commonwealth and makes a lie up there saying like, I tried to defend Xander as much as I could, but you know, he's dead. And so, cause no one's going to know, like the only people that know are him and Thaddeus. And I mean, Thaddeus sure could join the journey, but I don't see much reason of him wanting to leave his new managerial position. you know.
I would love to see a Thaddeus and Maximus team up because they now have two body armors as well. If they just were like, all right,
I
we're
didn't think
getting
about
out of
that.
here. It's going to be us two against the world, and whatever happens to them from there, who knows? But that's something I would like to see personally.
Yeah, we'll have to
Could
see.
be a
I
possibility.
truly have no idea. Yeah, I have no idea where this is going to head.
All right. Well, I mean, that's pretty much it for the storyline of episode 3. Any last second quick hitters that either of you guys have? Going once.
I guess there was some questions that you guys had
Yep.
from last week's pod. We answered some of them, but one of them was about like, where is everything in this Mojave Desert? Where is it located? And so to kind of give you some context, so like let's put New Vegas in the middle. If you go east of New Vegas, there's a place called the Fort, which is where Caesar's Legion used to be. I think that's where they are now when they're split up in two. It's not really clear, but it kind of looks like what it looked like.
Okay.
And if you go southwest of Las Vegas, you have where I believe the NCR is holed up in the hills there.
Okay.
Because we see this town in the background that has a roller coaster in it, which is one of the towns you can go to in the game. It's called Prim, and the roller coaster is called El Diablo, which is pretty cool.
Okay.
But I don't know if that like little amusement park has a name or not. I don't remember. But so they're pretty southwest, which did make me think about like the journey of the ghoul here, because he is kind of going like all over the place. So it might not be exactly accurate to like what the games had, but I think there is like this in the geography here is set up like that so that he'll be down southwest, kind of moving up northeast to go over to where the Caesar's Legion are. And now they'll probably head more west again to get to Vegas, is where I think they'll end up going the next episode. And Area 51, for example, I had to look this up on a real map because it's not in the game.
Yeah.
It's northwest of Las Vegas. So that gives you an idea of where the Brotherhood is. And when you're actually, if you pause during the scene in the war room at Area 51, there's a board on the back that is a map of the Mojave Desert. And you can see they have little icons to designate, the different factions, I think. So you have like Caesar's on the east, which is why I think that's probably where they're located. You have a vertibird up northwest where the Area 51 is. And then there's also a vertibird southwest, which is interesting.
Okay.
So, I'm not trying to read into it too much, but
Yeah.
there are some maybe about what the plans are and what Quintus is thinking there. But that kind of gave me a better idea of like where everybody is located too.
Yeah. No, and it sounds
That's
like pretty
awesome.
much Vegas would be centralized in the middle of everything you were just describing. So all roads lead there, it seems. Were there any other questions that we had? I feel like we had 2 or 3 from the last episode.
So we answered the fusion core question.
Yep.
Not fat boys. I would love to see some fat boys though.
Oh yeah.
Is Shady Sands a real place, right, in the games? I think that was one of the questions.
Hmm.
And the answer is yes. It's in Fallout 1 and Fallout 2, which I didn't play. Those are a little bit before my time. But from my understanding, it was like, as we learned in the show, it's the first, let's say, democratic stronghold of the NCR.
Gotcha.
And our questions about the tunics were answered when we get to the Legion. I think that was pretty much it.
What? So Shady Sands wasn't in New Vegas?
No, it was not.
Okay, gotcha. Was it even?
Which I'm not even sure where that's located, to be honest. I didn't really look into it too much on the map, but I'm assuming it can't be that far from Vegas. I guess if we think about it, like Vault 31, 32, and 33 are all like in Southern California.
Yeah, on the coast,
like right along the shore there.
Yeah.
And so Shady Sands could be like in between there and Vegas is probably my assumption.
Okay, gotcha.
Last thing I wanted to bring up with the Brotherhood that I forgot to bring up as well was, do we know the backstory for the Brotherhood and like its founding? Like, so we got the whole Roger Maxon stuff. There was I honestly didn't write down the whole story, but essentially there was just like this one trooper in this organization that he worked for. He always prioritized God above everything else, but his government didn't appear to be that way either, or view things that way either.
Well,
I don't know what he
Quintus
was.
said that he discovered the government was experimenting inhumanely on human subjects. And he was
Right.
tasked with being a soldier and following the orders of the government, who was clearly doing inhumane things or breaking away. And I think they were saying, like, metaphorically, do you answer to God or the government? Not that he was like a God-fearing,
Right. Yes.
religious fanatic, but
Mm.
this was the founder of the Brotherhood of Steel, this guy who essentially said the government's corrupt and not good. I'm going to found my own kind of faction, if you will, which turned into the Brotherhood.
Yeah, so I think that was just a great little lore dump that was real quick. A name that I'm going to be keeping my ears out for. I don't expect this Roger Maxim guy to maybe be alive, but anything seems to be possible in Fallout with cryo freezing and, the ghoul disease. So it's very possible he is. And if he is, that would be awesome. But just a name I definitely wanted to note down and be aware of for the future.
Yeah, we got some great lore there for the Brotherhood. And I guess to answer that question, I don't think we'll be seeing any Roger Maxson.
Okay.
But B-Toms knows this. Maybe from playing Fallout 4, one of the pivotal characters of the Brotherhood is his descendant, Arthur Maxson.
Yep.
Ah, okay, cool.
And
cool.
What I like is Xander actually is kind of wearing an outfit very similar to what Arthur Maxson wears in the games. So I think that's kind of a nod, but we could see maybe him or more descendants of the Maxson family could be possible.
Cool. Okay.
You never know.
That's awesome.
I should probably know this because it's common knowledge. Do you know where in the timeline the show sits relative to New Vegas and Fallout 4? Because I think Fallout 4 and New Vegas are around the same, maybe a decade or two different. Do you know where the show is within that timeline?
That's a good question. I never actually looked up where people think the year is for the show, but I would say, right, you said Fallout 4 is pretty far after Fallout 3. I think New Vegas is somewhere in between, but maybe like a decade.
Okay. You know what?
Or two.
That'll be our homework for the next episode, because I was just thinking the Roger Maxian guy probably long dead if he was the founder, but is it like potential that Arthur could still be around in this timeline? Like the guy from Fallout 4. I'm just wondering how those timelines line up, but that'll be our homework for next episode that we can figure out. All right. We are past our hour here. Is there anything else we need to cover? You guys feeling good?
Feeling great, baby. Excited.
Sweet. That is our episode 3 coverage of Amazon's Fallout. As always, if you like what you heard, hit that follow or subscribe button and give us a 5-star rating here on Binge Empire, and check us out on our other feed. That is The Core, covering all things Apple TV Plus. You can find us on Spotify, YouTube, the Apple Podcast app, or wherever else you may find your podcast. Once again, we are Bingetown TV. Thank you so much, Chase, for stopping by, but thank you to the audience for listening.